Welcome to the Tiga Tactics Podcast, a show about self-defense for civilians by civilians. We discuss all things personal protection, including combat sports, martial arts, and street combatives. Our resident MANs, martial arts nerds, include co-founder of Tiga Tactics and holder of black belts in 9 different styles, Dr. Conrad Bui.
Hello, everybody.
We are missing Patrick. He is busy doing Patrick things. But I am your other co-host, retired Army Special Forces soldier and champion obstacle course racing athlete, Evan Ultra-OCR and Perperis. And we're recording on Veterans Day.
Yes.
So we're going to do a military kind of war story focused episode. Before we get to that, though, quick word about Vulpes, sponsor for this episode. Conrad, tell me something you like about Vulpes.
Some of their quote unquote training tools are actually solid self-defense considerations for tools to use if you ever need to use something like that to protect yourself. So they have things that are like Yawaras or Kubotans or Pocket Stick. Those are solid, not just training tools, but if you had to use it, it's pretty solid for self-defense. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I got one of their pocket stick ones to use as a trainer, and after getting it, I was like the weight of it, I was like, oh, you could use this, and it's got like a nice keychain, and
Mhm.
they make one that's even more aggressive that has like a beveled edge. I got the flat one because I wanted to use it as like a trainer for a flashlight, but no, absolutely, you're absolutely right. I also picked up, I picked a couple at it was recently Halloween. I picked up a couple of like training hammers, as in like Halloween prop hammers. And they're just really light. They don't work well because it creates unnatural movement. The actual hammer, if like I was using a hammer to train on Bob, is a little bit heavy. But the Vulpes product is like right. It's pretty heavy, but not quite as heavy as an actual hammer. So I mean, you could, yeah, using any of those as like an actual defense weapon, it would hurt significantly. So,
Mhm.
and you can move with more speed, right? There's a trade off between weight and speed and power, right? So there's that trade off. But yeah, I I agree. The pocket sticks especially, like I'm not going to walk around carrying one of their swords as a self defense weapon down the street, but home defense you could. So
Yeah, if you chose to use one of their trainers as a self-defense tool, that would definitely leave a mark. There's no doubt about that.
and it's, especially if like I have kids, I don't want to leave very dangerous things laying out, right? So I think that's one of the advantages, right? I can leave a Vulpes training product literally laying out, and my kid, if my kid picks it up, they'll be fine. But if I hit someone who walks in the door who's not supposed to be there with it in the face, they will not be fine.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, you could strike repeatedly without worry about this thing breaking apart because
Absolutely.
it'll take some punishment.
And like I said, and the weight, they're not too heavy. So the reset speed is really fast. I found that as I was doing basically like FMA patterns on Bob, and I was like, oh, these are like I'm flying with these. These are nice.
Mhm.
So yeah. Speaking of fighting in close ranges, I got a webinar coming up.
That's right. Please tell us about it.
So Phil Elmore, you may know, he's got a lot of martial arts books and has a like an Etsy store called Engines of Mayhem where he sells some self defense items, some like custom Kydex sheaths. He did the illustrations for my book Western Piper Methods, the level 1 book, and I wanted to provide a way to like say thank you because he didn't charge me anything for it. He was just like, I'll just do it out of the kindness. I was like, oh well, I want to give something back. So we decided to collaborate on a webinar, and I asked him to pick a topic from Combative's Blueprint. And he liked close range. He wanted to talk about that. So we were doing a joint webinar on November 20th. I believe it's $47, $49, something like that. He's the one handling the finances. But for that, you get access to the webinar. It'll probably be an hour and a half to 2 hours, and you get a copy of the Combatives Blueprint. So it's a great deal, honestly, because the book by itself is 30, right? So you're getting a copy of my book for free because you're paying for the joint webinar book, and we're going to be talking about close in range fighting. So anyone who is a fan of Tiga Tactics stuff, I'm sure you are going to like some of the information I have to put out because a lot of the stuff I pull in from Tiga Tactics in addition to some of the other stuff I've learned from Modern Army Combatives. So I think it's going to be great fun.
Yeah, I can't wait to participate in this. And when I saw the ad or the announcement for this webinar, I thought, Wow, what a great deal. I was just going to sign up to get a second copy of your book, actually, whether I could make it or not. And I think even if you can't make it, a recording will be provided. Is that correct?
That is correct. Recording will be provided. If anyone is interested in signing up, I'm going to drop the link in the show notes down below. Or if you go to my Instagram, Ultra-OCR Man, or Facebook, or you go to Phil's Instagram or social media, he's very aggressive with advertising, like super aggressive. But it's working. People are signing up. So there are advertisements literally all over Strength and Speed, all over Phil's page, all over my page, and a lot of them are honestly, even if you're not going to sign up, it's worth going and checking out his page because he has all these like AI generated like
Yeah.
cartoony images and they're hysterical. Like every day I wake up and I'm like, what adventure was Phil and I on yesterday? And I was like, here we are, Dukes of Hazzard, Knight Rider, Contra, Double Dragon. It's all like 80s references. I love it. I
Yeah,
love it.
I found them very interesting. So, for our listeners who might not know Phil's background, could you let us know about his background?
He's been a writer and an author for a long time, so he's just accumulated an incredible amount of knowledge, self defense, mostly through reading. I'm not 100% sure on his martial arts background, as far as like what systems he's trained in extensively, but I know he's read a lot, and I just like being a human Google of like martial arts and combative knowledge. I think is where he builds a lot of his value, and the other thing he's not like super, he's not a special forces guy or an endurance athlete guy. So he approaches self defense a little bit different, which is one of the things I like because he's like, well, the first step in defending yourself shouldn't be become a professional athlete or like become a mixed martial arts fighter, and then you can defend yourself. Like that's years and years of journey. Like you need to start people off something usable and something they can do tomorrow and make themselves safer, much like the way Tiga Tactics teaches. So I like that. I like that approach he brings to things. So yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. And I saw that on the announcement, and on some of the posters, it said something like uh, every encounter is a close range encounter, something like that. Can you explain that to us a little bit?
Yeah, so some of that's Phil's. Again, he's a marketing guy. So we. I don't think we've talked about it on air, but we've talked about it in person about like social media and creating engagement, and like sometimes you have to make like controversial statements to get people to engage more.
Mm.
And there's definitely a little bit of sprinkling of that in it,
Oh,
but
wow.
there's also a little bit of truth in that, right? Again, from Tiga Tactics videos, all the stuff you guys have looked at for CCTV, we know a lot of encounters are very, very close,
Yes.
right? They're ambushes and they happen very close, and especially in 25, with people suing each other, even like the bad guys or the bad guys' families like suing the good guy. Um, I think a lot of people are hesitant to strike first because of all the legal implications and problems that arise with that.
Hmm.
Which means you're going to start the fight off probably on your back foot, probably defending yourself, and you're probably going to be in extremely close range, right? So those nice long boxing combos, that jab, cross, hook, that teep, but you got Muay Thai, that round kick, you know, that's probably not the position you're starting in. You're probably starting in more of like a Muay Thai clench type position, and you're gonna have to fight out of that position. So
Yes, yes. There is truth to that for sure. Yeah, when there's an encounter, especially as a civilian, it is going to be up close and personal the majority of the time.
yeah, I know. I know. I personally, physically putting my hands on someone it's such it's so late in the decision tree. It's like again in 2025, I don't want to deal with any of that. I'm going to de-escalate. I'm going to walk away if it's possible. If it's an attack, right? Obviously, they're striking me first because I'm being blindsided, and then I'm gonna have to defend myself. So again, you'll much like Tiga Tactics, you'll recognize some of the movements. I've sprinkled in some of my own movements in there as well. But a lot of it's like simple stuff you can use tomorrow. You can leave the webinar, feel more you feel better protected and more capable leaving the webinar. That's kind of my goal, just like when we do with the Tiga Tactics courses, except I only have like 2 hours as opposed to 12 hours over the weekend.
Yay. I'm looking forward to it. And I know through webinars, there's going to be a lot of mindset stuff and which
Absolutely.
is the foundation of any self-defense or personal protection foundation there.
Absolutely. We just, as we're recording this, we just finished a class on about with Western Piper through my Patreon page. The ability to do virtual training is so amazing in the 2020s and beyond, right? Like I literally went to Brazilian Jiu Jitsu for an hour and a half, went to a 30-minute Western Piper class on the drive back from Jiu Jitsu. So I was like listening in while driving, came back, showered, ate dinner, and then I taught a Western Piper class. And now I'm recording a podcast talking about martial arts, right? So the amount of martial knowledge I've crammed into just this evening through virtual means is just it's a ridiculous amount. And if you're not taking advantage of that and building on your mindset, which is going to build on your skill set, I think you're really missing out on specific and important attributes for being a complete martial artist.
I agree, and especially something like this webinar, you could, I mean, well, if you're totally stuck and there's just no place to train around you, webinars are a fine way to go. But if you get live training, that is the way to go, and you supplement it with these types of webinars, and it's just amazing. Like what you said, you can do this from your own your house, your garage, wherever you want to be. Even if you're on vacation, you could still listen in, and you might not be able to participate or anything like that. You can still listen in, or at the very least, if you can't even listen in, this one provides a recording of it, so you can watch it at a later time.
Yeah. Anytime I take a webinar, I will watch it a minimum of 3 times. So once I try to do it live where I just kind of pay attention and follow along. Once I will watch it again and take notes. So I make like notes on my phone. And then a third time I will try to physically practice it, essentially doing it again. So 3 at a minimum. A lot of times I will watch it a couple more times. Sometimes I'll listen to it on the drive or put it on right before I go to bed. So I pay whatever, $20, $40, $50, whatever it may be for the webinar. And I end up watching it repeatedly over and over again to kind of make sure those lessons are sticking in my brain and it's not something that I heard once and goes out the door. So I think webinars, again, that replay value is just it's just not there with, some of your in-person classes.
Right.
So
And you make it sound like you have nothing in your life but martial arts. And we all know better than that. You're a busy man, you're a student, you have family as well too. So that's incredible how you're able to manage your time. Maybe we'll have a little podcast on time management.
yeah.
That would be terrific to get some of that from you.
One of my secrets, I'm gonna give a shout out to my boy Rolo from One ID Combatives. He listens to some of his podcasts on 2x speed,
Mm.
so you can get through twice the amount of information. You can't do it with every podcast. Like I've tried listening to some of ours on 2x speed, and sometimes I talk way too fast. That New York accent, that New York speed of talking makes it unlistenable. So sometimes I've listened to ours on 1.5 is about as fast as I can go. Otherwise, my rate of speech is too fast for people, or at least
I'm guilty too. Sometimes I talk even too fast for my own brain to be catching up. So I'm guilty about speaking quickly as well too.
I remember when I was in Lebanon, we were at a dinner with a bunch of guys who speak Arabic and English, and one of them was like, "Oh, I can understand everyone except you," and he points at me because I grew up in New York, so I'm used to if people speak fast, I speak fast, right? And he just couldn't keep up with my rate of speech, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. I'll try to slow it down." Thank you.
All right, well let's move on, and I'm sure we'll have some links to your webinar coming up. And before we get started, I want to say thank you for your service, Evan. Thank you to all the everyone who is part of the armed forces, the military, for their service and keeping our country safe and protecting our freedom.
Yeah, you're welcome. Mostly my pleasure. Yeah, it's I appreciate all my brothers in arms, and it's met some absolutely amazing people. Had some amazing experiences, and a lot of times people thank me on Veterans Day, and I feel guilty because like I feel like I benefited pretty good from this. I don't know why people are thanking me, but I appreciate the sentiment. It always feels slightly awkward for me, but I don't know. We did a luncheon today, like a dinner with like all the veterans on campus, which for a small school, we had 10 veterans, which is a
Wow.
lot, considering how big our school is. Probably like 200 people, maybe. I don't know how many students we have. Not that many. But yeah, I always feel a little bit awkward, like, I don't know.
Well,
I enjoyed most of it. So
you're just that kind of person. Whatever situation you're in, whatever experience you go through, you make it positive. And so I'm happy it was positive for you. And again, thank you for all the sacrifice.
pleasure. My pleasure. All right. So let's get into I feel like we've already dropped some good knowledge, but it wasn't the topic that we were supposed to be talking about. So should we jump into the actual topics
Yes,
here?
yes, yes. So uh, this is going to be talking about your experience in the military here today, and I'd love to get some of your stories on when you were involved in firefights with bullets flying. So can you share some of that with us?
Yeah, so I'm going to focus on one. It was an apartment shootout. I'm going to call it. A lot of the times, the times I was shot at in Iraq, they were very fleeting, right? So the bad guy would fire rounds like at our element. Sometimes it's closer to me. Other times it's like your element may be spread out over. Um, I'm going to say blocks, but don't think of it like a New York City block. Like it's like 200 feet, right? Like there's small blocks,
Hmm.
right? So your elements spread out. So you're crossing multiple, we call them linear danger areas. So multiple roads. So a lot of times people would shoot at you, and then you'd go to return fire, and there's no one there, right? Because he shoots and then he literally runs away. Uh, I started my first deployment at the end of 2005, and then I did deployments to Iraq 05, 06, 07, 08, and then 2011. Um, I feel like the people who would stand their ground and like duke it out with you were probably killed pretty early in 2003 and 4, right?
Hmm.
Like the American military we're strong. We are the strongest military in the history of the world ever, right?
Right.
Like we're just our firepower, technology, the mindset, the training, the amount of resources we pour into it. And I honestly don't even think we're that good. I just think everyone else is really bad. Um, and that's my honest opinion. I heard a Navy SEAL say that on a documentary when I was growing up, and I was like, "Yeah, that can't be true." He was talking about the SEALs specifically. He's like, "We're not that good. Everyone else is just really bad." But then as I started going on deployments, I realized no, that's kind of true for not just like special operations, but for the United States in general. Like, we're not that good. Everyone else is really bad at this. So yeah, most of the times I was shot at, it was it shoots, you hear it, and then you go to shoot back, and there's like no one there. I think I mentioned this maybe on the webinar. We did the gun threat webinar
Mhm.
a year or two ago. I remember one of the first times I got shot at, I jumped like I you know I st- I jumped, and I remember like thinking back and being like, man, what a pussy! Like what I can't believe I jumped. Like I've been through Ranger School, I've gone through all this training, and I'm still young. I'm 23 or 4 at the time or whatever. But I remember jumping and being upset at myself. Um, and then as I've gotten older and listened to more stories and more like books about like psychological effects, I realized like that startle response is normal, right? Why
Mhm.
don't can you tell us a little bit about like startle response? I know that you've looked into it, Conrad.
Yeah, definitely. It is totally normal, and uh, your body tightens up. You generally kind of drop at your knees a little bit, and your eyes, your pupils dilate. Hey, I think it's a good thing just as long as we don't become frozen by that startle response. It just literally it's a slap in the face to wake us up, and that's how I look at it. And I can't tell you how many times I've been to the gun range. I spent a lot of my time at the gun range, and I still get. I don't jump or anything, but I still get a little startled when I go in there and I hear someone firing the first round when I'm in there, boom, right next to me. I'm like, oh, okay. It still wakes me up, and so I think if we look at it from a positive viewpoint and we use that to move forward with, it's a good thing.
Yeah. My 10-year-old daughter has startled me walking out of the bathroom in the middle of the night, right? Like I've been startled at haunted houses, right? And like you said, I don't get startled and then shut down and like bury my head, right? But that jump response is normal sometimes. Um, a lot of times, especially if your mind isn't thinking about the situation, like if your mind's kind of wandering, I feel like the startle response gets worse, like it's more pronounced because you're thinking about something else. All right, so yeah, back to shooting stories. So this specific story, we were in an apartment complex, right? And I had gone to that apartment complex with since with another platoon, where I was basically my platoon was guarding the base. So as a platoon leader, I didn't have anything to do. So a lot of times I would ride with other platoons just to learn the layout of the city, to learn from their tactics, to see what they were doing, to see things I could take. Just kind of like the Jeet Kune Do philosophy there. I'm taking what's useful and discarding what I don't find useful. So I would ride with other platoons, and I would do it all the time to be like, oh well, what does this platoon leader do that is better than the way I do things.
Mm.
So we were in this apartment complex. Uh, there's like apartments kind of like making they're like in a rectangle, right? So there's, maybe six on the north side, six on the south side, six on the west side, six on the east side. And then in the center, there's a parking lot with a bunch of cars in there, right? So there's like a empty space. So we're in the middle in that parking lot there. And it was nighttime or it was dusk. I can't remember. It had to be night. Yeah, it was nighttime. And we get shot at from one of the rooftops. Right. So, the guys turn on their flashlights, their attack lights which are mounted to their weapons, and they're scanning the rooftops trying to find the guy who shoot at us so we can shoot back. Um, the first things I noticed was one, because we hadn't, again, I'm not in charge of the platoon, because we hadn't set the conditions, we hadn't created our own situational awareness. We were starting off at a disadvantage, right? So all of our guys are on the ground. The bad guy is starting off at the high position. He's got the tactile advantage over us. The other thing I noticed is a lot of the guys in the platoon turned on their weapon lights and just left them on, right? So you
Mm.
have all these soldiers who essentially have reverse arrows pointing at their position, right? Because there's a giant beam of light
Hmm.
pointing back at you. And if you're pointing it at the guy's eyes, that's less of a problem because now he can't see. But if I'm pointing in the wrong direction, now there's a giant line going to where my position is, right? And someone else can basically just aim at where the origin of the light is.
Right.
Um, which I know I remember listening to Patrick when I took the Tiga Tactics online flashlight course. I remember him talking about some of like the tactics with the flashlight, and I remember being like, why was I never taught this in the military? Like I knew some of it just because I basically used common sense to like backwards figure things out. But at no point do I ever recall someone like being like, here's how to use a flashlight in a tactical environment, and here are things you do and do not want to do. I thought that was really interesting. Um, so
Wow.
yeah, yeah, I thought again I specifically remember Patrick walking through his house with a flashlight and some of the stuff he bought. I was like, oh, these are stuff I know, but I've never heard someone like sit down and explain it. And if you haven't sat down and thought about how to use a flashlight in like a tactical environment or an environment where there may be a bad guy, that course is going to be like you're going to open your eyes to a lot of like really good suggestions.
Yeah, and that's something like e- even as a civilian, and I teach concealed carry classes, and no, we just say, hey, make sure you have a flashlight with your firearm. That way you can identify your threat. But that's about it. Just make sure you identify your threat before you shoot. And other than that, there's very very little discussion on the way to use a flashlight properly.
Yeah. Actually, that I'm gonna caveat my story with one thing. At one point, I do remember Special Forces Advanced Urban Combat course. We did specifically talk about flashlights, but that would be let's see, it'd be like 6 years after this incident I'm about to tell you about. Um,
Wow.
so I did get some of it in SF, but I shouldn't have had to wait till SF. It should have been in the regular army, right? Like that should have been like um, This should be like basic stuff you learn, but no one has specifically talked about specifically flashlight usage.
Hmm.
Um, okay, yeah. So we get shot at. We try to shoot back. We can't find the bad guy. Right, he's running across some rooftop. I don't know where he is. Right. We spend some time running around at night with flashlights on, trying to find bad guys. Nothing happens. We get back in the vehicles. We drive home. So next time I'm in that apartment complex, I am there. I'm in charge this time. And I actually have a different platoon leader riding along with me. One of the few times, one of the other ones actually rode with me. Um, so we're in the when we drive into the apartment complex again. I don't. Anytime something bad happens to me, I try to take lessons learned from it, and I think that's a good habit to build for literally everything, whether it be jujitsu, Muay Thai, or gardening, whatever you do, right?
Hmm.
So I was like, well, the last time the bad guys had the tactical advantage, so like we're not doing that again. So the very first thing we do when we drive to the apartment complex is before we even stop the vehicles, we'd pull in. I'd have an element dismount, and then we'd keep driving to wherever we're going to stage the vehicles. So by the time our vehicle's staged, we would have guys on the rooftops of one of the buildings. So they
Hmm.
would have overwatch over us. They could provide covering fire. Um, and then we would continue to do, but a lot of times you have to be on the ground. You can't necessarily be in the buildings. Um, so we were specifically searching the vehicles in the center of this apartment complex because what I'd figured out, again, not because someone had trained me, just from trial and error and from trying to think like a bad guy. Again, when we talk Tiga tactics, we think about how does a bad guy attack and how would I defend against that, right? We're taking a good input to create a good output.
Right.
So I started figuring out that, by 2000, this is 2007, like, or late 2007, maybe early, it had to be late 2007. By 2007, all the bad guys who had weapons in their house, if you raided their house and they had weapons, it becomes very hard to deny that you will own those weapons, right? Because they're in your apartment or they're in your house.
Hmm.
So what I'd figured out was the bad guys don't want their weapons in their house, but they want their weapons close enough nearby where they can access them. But it requires a little bit of difficulty, right? So you don't want anyone to be able to access them, but you still want to be able to access them. And you want some sort of plausible deniability. No, those aren't my weapons. I don't know why they're in that random closet in the apartment complex. I don't know who owns that closet.
Hmm.
Or no, I don't. Those aren't my weapons. I don't know. That's an abandoned building. I don't know who owns that building. Or yes, that may be my building, but I don't. I can't control what people put in there. Or that's an abandoned car. I don't know who owns it. I don't know whose weapons those are. So
Hmm.
that's specifically that last one is what specifically we're looking at. There's a parking lot, whole bunch of vehicles, and we go to look for weapons in the vehicles. Um, I can't remember if this is before or after we figured this out, but my obsession with knives. You're familiar with Bud K, obviously, right?
Yes, yes, of course.
If you're not familiar with Bud K, it is a knife magazine that mostly makes cheap knives, but they're amazing for display purposes mostly. I wouldn't. Um, so Bud K I remember they used to sell something called auto jigglers, which are essentially key blanks with various shapes, and you essentially stick them in and you jiggle them, and they open car doors. Um, in 2007 2008, I'm trying not to damage people's property because we're running a counterinsurgencies campaign, and if I keep smashing people's windows to check their cars who aren't bad guys, I'm going to create more terrorists than I'm catching.
Right.
Right. And I remember thinking back to my high school days and being like, Bud K has car keys that are apparently open doors. So I ordered Bud K auto jigglers and had them sent to Iraq, and that's what we would use to open car doors.
Holy cow, and it worked?
So I would say, I'd say 30 to 50% of the time it worked, depending on the neighborhood. Yeah.
Wow.
And so again, the military didn't provide this. This is Evan being a knife nut. And so I literally, what's funny is, again, I have no training on auto jigglers. I don't know what I'm doing. I literally hand one of my specialists a set of auto jiggler keys from Bud K. And I'm like, these are supposed to open car doors. Figure out what works. And he's like, what? I was like, I don't know. Like I explained to him how it works, and he would literally walk down the street with the keys, just randomly opening people's trunks. Like I said, it didn't work every time, but 30 to 50% of the time we'd get into cars and we'd be able to search them. So we were specifically searching cars in that parking lot. And I was like, specifically look for cars that don't look like they belong to someone. They're quote unquote abandoned.
Mm.
So we open a trunk. Again, I can't remember if it was auto jigglers or we just popped it open. And inside we found, I don't know, 4 RPGs,
Ooh.
4 rocket-propelled grenades, and I think a mortar bipod stand,
Wow.
if I remember correctly, and then maybe 1 or 2 82 millimeter mortars.
Ooh.
So we found a little cache.
Yeah.
Great win.
Jackpot. Yeah.
Side note, my platoon was the only platoon out of the 7 in our assigned battalion that ever found caches without direct intelligence. So other people found caches because the battalion was like, we have someone told us there was a cache here. Here's someone who's going to guide you to it. Go with them. We were the only people who ever found it without any
Oh,
guidance
wow.
because we were thinking like the enemy.
Mm.
So we'd explore abandoned buildings, we'd explore abandoned cars, etc. Again, thinking like the enemy, allowing us to counter his own tactics.
Hmm.
So we find the stuff, start pulling it out. My guys are already on the rooftop, and we take fire again from another rooftop.
Mm.
Except this time, I already have people on the rooftop to fire back immediately.
Right.
Right. So I have covering fire from up top. Um, I'm on the ground in the parking lot. My squad leader and the guest platoon leader and 2 Iraqis run towards the building to try to essentially attack from the bottom up. I stay with the vehicles because I get back on the radio and start calling see if there's any CCA, close combat aviation, so helicopters that can shoot that are in the area. There wasn't, so that ended up being a fruitless endeavor. But you don't. There are times when I beat myself up, being like, I should have gone with the assault element
Mm.
to help like see to that better. And I remember beating myself up on it, but that's in hindsight because I don't know if those gunshots are the start of a complex attack and we're going to be fighting on all sides, or if this is just one dude firing at me with his AK.
Hmm.
So it's easy to start again, anytime you're in like a high stress situation, it's easy to start picking apart your decisions based off of how things turned out and how things turned out versus how they could have turned out, right? Because if that was the first shot of several apartment buildings shooting at us, now the the close combat aviation would have been needed, and that
Hmm.
would have been a much better decision on my part to go to the vehicles and get the aviation on
Hmm.
call. Anyway, so my platoon, my squad leader, friend platoon leader, 2 Iraqis head towards this building. So we're shooting at it from the ground, essentially my positions. Although I don't think we were shooting that much because the angle of the rooftop. But we're shooting at it from across the top, from the adjacent rooftop, or maybe a couple of rooftops away it was. And then we have an assault element coming from the ground floor up. We get to the top floor. My squad leader gets to the top floor, and he comes over the radio. He's like, sir, I can't get to the rooftop without getting on all fours and crawling through. There's essentially like a small hatch that he has to crawl. So he'll come out on the rooftop like head first with no weapon pointed at anything. Right, very vulnerable position. And I said, Roger, throw a grenade if you need to. Just let us know if you're going to throw it. And there's silence for a couple of seconds, maybe like 20 seconds of silence, and then there's just a loud explosion. I was like, I guess he threw the grenade.
Oh.
And again, an outsider might think that's weird that I told him to throw a grenade or I gave him permission to throw a grenade. Sometimes in some units, they are very restrictive on soldiers' ability to make their own decisions, and they want tight controls. I was not that type of leader, based off of the guys I had in my various platoons and on my teams. But I also didn't. So I gave him permission, but if he would have just thrown it, I wouldn't have been upset. I just wanted to make it clear that was on his list of options immediately, and not having him to think through or call me. So essentially, he throws a M67, a frag grenade through the hole. It blows up. And then him and the other three people he's with come up onto the rooftop with firearms, um, and they find the body of the guy that was shooting at us. So the grenade got him, and that was essentially the end of the incident. They recovered the body. There was no follow-on attack after that, and it stopped the bad guys in that city from shooting at us for quite a while after that. I feel like both of my first two deployments, we would get shot at a lot, or they would try to attack us a bunch. And the second we were able to get them and lock them down into a decisive engagement, they and we would win. They would be like, okay, maybe this is not the right unit to mess around with. So they would kind of like back off, kind of like how we talk about the bad guys are looking for easy targets, right? The terrorist bad guys are the same way. They're looking for easy targets. And by this point, they figured out that, every year a new unit will rotate through, right? So maybe this isn't the unit. Maybe I should wait 6 months before I start attacking again, because this unit's been here for 6 months and they're not messing around. So maybe I should just wait to the next unit. Kind of like how bad guys, again, if you maintain good situational awareness, you keep your head out of your wraps, you're looking around, your head on a swivel, all that stuff, good posture, you look physically fit, it will deter a lot of attacks before they even start. And again, it works on a micro scale, and I think it works on a macro scale as well.
Right. These concepts or laws or whatever you want to call it, they transfer from situation to situation, and for different environments as well too. So definitely. I'm curious. Since there was, what was it? Just one gunman that was shooting?
As far as we could tell, yeah.
Oh, okay. And how close were these rounds getting to you?
I don't know. So it's not like the movies where there's like chunks of dirt flying around you and there's like pieces of concrete flying off. I mean, like a lot of times you'll hear the gunfire. Sometimes you'll hear the zzz, like that of it whipping through the air. But I just have no idea how. I just have no idea how close it is. Was that a foot? Was that 10 feet? Was that 50 feet? I don't know. I honestly have no idea. And that's for most of my. It's kind of like ignorance is bliss. Like most of the times, I have no idea how close it was to me. The times I've been like hit with IEDs or getting close to IEDs or had RPGs fired at me, that was I can usually tell because they're big. But bullets, I couldn't give you a realistic estimate without just pulling a number out of my ass.
Sure. And were there any casualties on your side in this situation at all?
There were not, no. So everyone on my side was good. No wounds, no wounded or anything like that. Yeah.
All
And
right.
honestly, I usually don't even I typically don't, like in my books. I usually don't share. I think I shared the story in the Combative's Blueprint. I did not share it in like my biography. Um, I don't like sharing. I usually don't like sharing stories where like people die. It's not obviously like we did what we had to do, but I don't think you should like gloat about that stuff.
Right.
But because this is like a tactics, martial arts related podcast, and we're talking about self protection, and I think people can pull lessons from it, value. I do share, as opposed to sharing it for quote unquote war porn type sake.
Absolutely.
I think I pull information out of it that helps people. Not to be like, hey, look how cool me and my platoon are, at the expense of someone else. Even though,
Right.
right, we'd say
Right.
you deserve what happened.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing this with us. And let's dive into this a little bit more. So I want to ask, uh, in this situation, the survival of your survival as well as the survival of your platoon, skill versus luck. You obviously had better planning this time since you had some people on the roof doing the overwatch. And so, what would you say in this situation of was it mostly skill that you survived, mostly luck, balanced, a little of this or a little of that, a little more? What would you say?
I'd say it was mostly skill. I'm not. It's skill. it was stacking the deck in our favor in advance, right? So the people on the rooftops, and then like all of the stuff the United States Army brings to bear, right?
Hmm.
Multiple vehicles, a
Hmm.
platoon worth of guys covered in body armor, physically fit, basic
Hmm.
rifle marksmanship, all of this preparatory work we've done, training together pre-deployment, deployed, understanding the area we're going to based off lessons learned from previous platoons that have gone out to the area. Um, you know, it's you know, it, we had stacked the deck in our favor, where the amount of luck we needed was, I think, very low at that point.
Right. Very cool. That's good to know. I guess there might be a little bit of luck in that the gunman there, maybe his marksmanship wasn't on point that day or something like that as well too. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd agree with that, especially on the first volley of fire, right? Because we're not behind cover at that point. We're just literally walking around in the
Right.
open, because you can't stay behind cover all the time. Otherwise, you wouldn't get anywhere, right? You'd be like, you wouldn't be able to see anything, right? Because I'm constantly moving from like engine block to engine block, right?
Right.
It would take forever to get anywhere. So yeah, that first, I'd say that first volley of fire it would be actually his skill, which I guess is our luck rather, you know.
Yeah, yeah. What was he firing full auto, semi-auto,
Uh, it
or?
was it was burst, as I recall. So it was AK-47 on essentially full auto, but you don't hold the trigger down for all until you empty the magazine. You shoot
Mhm.
bursts.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. And you also talked about all the training you had. Obviously, the mindset was there, the skill set was there, and then you had a very strong tool set with your armor and also your all the weapons that you had as well too.
Yeah. The mindset was really important. Most of the guys, I would say, performed appropriately. Um, and they did exactly what they were trained to do. Supposedly one of my guys was not was he was the driver, so he shouldn't have gotten out of the vehicle anyway. But supposedly he was one of the again soldiers talking. One of them said he had more of like that freeze response. Um, Again, I'm going off of secondhand information from one of my other soldiers who didn't necessarily like this soldier, so we can take that with a grain of salt. But
I'm just curious. You're shooting 5.56 rounds, and do you know who manufactures that round?
I do not off the top of my head. Um, So we were shooting 5.56 would be what that's we're all carrying M4s. We did have a 50 cal or two 50 cals mounted on the top of our trucks. And then I
Ooh.
think we had 240 Bravo machine guns, which is going to shoot 7.62 on the top of the other two trucks. I can't remember the exact split. It was probably 2 and 2. That's
Hmm.
usually what we rolled with. Occasionally, one of the 50 cals is switched for a Mark 19, an automatic grenade launcher. But with us being in the city, I don't think we ever rode with the Mark 19 on our trucks. We did not fire the 50 cal. Um, my boss would later, he'd be like, "Great job not firing the 50 cal." And
Hmm.
I remember thinking, we didn't fire the 50 cal because the 50 cal gunner couldn't see the target. Um,
Hmm.
it was not a conscious decision to try to like to try to minimize casualties, or like if the 50 cal gunner could have seen the target, I think I would have told him to shoot, or he would have shot by himself without me telling him anything.
Hmm.
Um, um, Not again. Thankfully, he did not shoot, or didn't have to shoot. So there's no other casualties. But again, this is Evan's leadership style. I delegate a lot of my stuff. Uh, the 50 cal gunner never had to ask me to shoot if he wanted to shoot. And I think that was clear with him. There are other leaders who would be more restrictive. And again, it's a lot of that is based off of your personality, based off the personality of your guys, their ability to make competent decisions. I thought my guys could make decisions for themselves. And I always tell them, I will support your decision. Just understand you need to be able to justify it. And at the end of the day, right, like I'm a Christian, God-fearing man. It's like he's ultimately the one you have to answer to. Like, I mean, no, I mean, I'm gonna say I think you did the right thing because you're gonna because I know you're gonna do the right thing, and you'll tell me why you chose to answer that question. But at the end of the day, like that's something you have to live with, and
Mhm.
with post-traumatic stress being as high as it is, you don't want to have to deal with doing things that are wrong. Um, it's just gonna bother you for a really long time.
Right.
I think I'm not going to retell that story, the story, but I think I may have told you a story about a driver that got shot on one of my other deployments and how it really bothered one of my friends. And I had no recollection of the incident, even though I was there for it.
Mm.
Because he felt like he had done something wrong, so it stuck with him. Versus I didn't think we had made the wrong decision based off the information we had available at the time. So I don't remember being bothered by the decision at all. So
Right.
um, that's another story
Yep.
though.
Well, I'd like to summarize a few takeaways that I
Yeah,
learned from
please.
your story. So, uh, uh, when you were when I asked you, was this skill versus luck, and you said, "Oh yeah, definitely skill." You had a well-trained team. You had the mindset, the skill set, the tool set. Uh, in a smaller scale for a person who's or a civilian who's interested in protecting their family, protecting uh, their loved ones. Getting that mindset, skill set, tool set, training regularly, going to seminars, going to webinars like what you're going to be doing soon here. That just increases your skills, and increasing your skills increases your odds, and increasing your odds that increases your luck. So I think having that superior training and developing that superior mindset, that superior skill set. And then, of course, whatever tool set you're comfortable with, go with the best that you're comfortable with purchasing, with practicing, and really understanding that tool set. That'll just increase the odds of you surviving, which increases your luck. So that's one thing. And the other thing I got from this was when you said we're not all that good, everyone else is just really bad. And to me, that we've talked about this with Tiga tactics. I call it the one-up concept. And basically, you just need to appear more of a hard target than the people around you. So if you're walking around and you're the one with their head on a swivel, you're the one walking with confidence, you're the one that looks alert and attentive, and you work out, you carry yourself well. You're one up to the other people around you, and you're less likely to be targeted as prey. So I also think of that with my house as well too. I live in San Francisco, not the best place in as far as break-ins go. There's plenty of break-ins here in San Francisco. There's crime here in San Francisco, and I do the one-up concept. I have lights, motion activated lights all over the place. A lot of my neighbors don't have any of that. I have cameras all over the place. Many of my neighbors don't have that. I even have bars on my window. So if somebody's casing my house, they're going to know I'm serious about security. And they'll go to somebody else's place because it's pretty obvious that the other person isn't that serious about security. So that one up concept, you don't have to be Fort Knox. You don't have to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, and look all muscle and jacked and everything like that. You just have to be one up to the people around you. And same thing with your house, just one up to the other houses around you, and that'll make you a harder target.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I remember being in. So a lot of times, convoys, the logistics convoys, we get shot at on the highway, and we would always be like, "Why the logistics guys? Like, how come we don't? No one shoot. Like, we would get blown up just like the logistics guys, but
Hmm.
very rarely would we get small arms fire driving up and down the highway, and we thought it was so strange. And again, now that I've had time to step back, it's because we were presenting a hard target. Do you want to shoot at the bunch of trucks where like every fifth one is armed, and you know they're transporting supplies, or do you want you want to shoot at the one that looks like a porcupine with guns sticking out in every direction? You know, that's why they never shot at us, because we had guns pointed everywhere. Like literally, there's one forward. You know, there's a 50 cals. There might be, like I said, sometimes some platoons carried Mark 19s, right? So like, you don't want to shoot at that guy. That's a terrible target. You shoot at the logistics truck that has no guns sticking out of it. So,
Right.
and again, we're not that good. They're just they're like, well, I'm just gonna go for the easier target, just like low level criminals.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing your experience with us. I look forward to hearing more of your experience that way. You know, it's I good, bad, otherwise. If we can learn something from it, if some of this knowledge could save just one person, really appreciate what you're doing, Evan.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening, and shout out to my Gator platoon 26, our group there, and I love those guys. They were great to work with. It was an honor for me to lead them, and to be associated with their work downrange. So,
Awesome. Awesome. All right.
final shout outs we need to give Conrad.
All right. So, Patrick will have a calendar of events for 2026. So, we're having all that solidified. And if you'd like Tiga tactics at your school, your church, your organization, your business, hit us up. We just want to empower our community, empower good people to be able to take care of themselves. So, check us out online, check out our calendar, and if you'd like us there, hit us up. What about you, Evan?
Speaking of upcoming Tiga Tech, this thing, I know, again, I don't think we've posted any dates. I know I think the first thing we have coming up is there's supposed to be a webinar in January, right? There's supposed to be a Tiga Tech webinar
Yes, yes.
in January. So I'll just say be on the lookout for that. Again, like you said, follow Tiga Tactics. And then, again, speaking of webinars, check out the links in the show notes for that close range webinar with myself and Phil Elmore. I'll be doing a lot of the teaching, but you'll also get some of Phil's inputs as well. And then, like we said at the beginning, you get a copy of the Combatives Blueprint. And if you have a copy already, you can gift it to a friend, or you can actually sign up without getting a copy of the Combatives Blueprint. It'll save you, I think, about $20. But if you know someone who would enjoy the Combatives Blueprint, whether that be for Christmas or a birthday, or just because you like one of your friends, it does save you money as far as like buying it without the book and then buying the book later or something. So, and the book Conrad wrote the forward. It's got such an absurd amount of information in there. I honestly wanted it. I should charge more than 30, but then I was like worried people wouldn't buy it. So, only
Well,
$30.
I agree with everything you said. If some of our listeners do not have that book, you got to get the book. It is thick. It is heavy. I think just the cost of shipping is probably half the book right there. So get the book. Get the seminar. Like I said, I was going to sign up for the seminar just so I can have another book, really. So definitely sign up for the seminar. What a great deal.
Yeah. And then I have got my level 2 Western Piper book, hopefully coming out this month.
Ooh.
It's done. I'm waiting for Phil's providing the pictures again. I'm waiting for those pictures to come in, and then I basically stick them in and hit publish. And then I'm gonna go with the date January 1st, 2026. My Bladed Combatives book is gonna drop. That is
Ooh.
just as girthy as my Combatives Blueprint book, but it's just focused on knives. And I explore the questionable amount of time and money I've spent exploring knife systems. I have condensed that into a single book, highlighting key takeaways. Again, stealing Tiga Tactics model here of looking at a lot of stuff and then distilling it down to like what I think, where I think the most value is. So that's about 200. That's about 300 pages as well. Yeah,
Really?
290.
Dang, I look forward to this.
Yeah. That one will be. I might charge a little bit more for that one just because of how much money I've poured into like researching it. You know, which has basically been nonstop for the last, I don't know, 5 years. Like I mean, you've seen every time we meet up, I'm like, oh, I'm exploring this knife system. You're
Yep.
like, where are you finding these? I was like, I don't know. Knife weirdos online. I'm friends with all the knife weirdos.
Well, I think just about every martial artist should get this book because, the knife is a common, ubiquitous type of tool slash weapon. And whether you use it or you need to learn how to defend against it, it's important to have that knowledge. So whether you own a martial arts school, you teach, you have students, or you are a student, or you're interested in self-defense, personal protection, you conceal carry. It doesn't matter. This is a book for everybody who's interested in some type of self-defense.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, I think that's it. We should get to bed.
All right.
It's late here. We'll see you guys in the next episode, which should be, speaking of weird knife stuff, it should be a Western Piper Methods focused episode. So we'll see you then.
All right. Bye, everyone.
All right, later.